I was dating someone who wasn't available emotionally, and I had this fantasy that he was available when he wasn't.
Shh. Welcome to the Secret Life Podcast. Tell me your secret. I'll tell you mine. Sometimes you have to go through the darkness to reach the light. That's what I did. After 12 years of recovery in sex and love addiction, I finally found my soulmate, myself. Please join me in my novel, Secret Life of a Hollywood Sex and Love Addict, a 4-time bestseller on Amazon. It's a brutal, honest, raw, gnarly ride, but hilarious at the same time. Check it out now on Amazon. Welcome to Secret Life Podcast. I'm Brianne Davis-Gant. Today I'm pulling back the curtains of all kinds of human secrets. We'll hear about what people are hiding from themselves or others. You know those deep, dark secrets you probably want to take to your grave? Or those lighter, funnier secrets that are just plain embarrassing? Really, the how, what, when, where, and why of it all. Today, my guest is Courtney. Ooh. Now, Courtney, I have a question for you. Dun, dun, dun.
Oh,
what
God.
is your secret?
I am a love addict that is addicted to the fantasy and making anyone my Prince Charming.
Ooh. Oh, the Prince Charming. It's like fantasy 101.
Literally.
So here, okay, this is such an interesting one because I think a lot of people have this, and I love that you wanted to come on and share it. So when did it start? If you could go back to like the fantasy, what would that be for you?
I think it started when I was a little girl and I would always play princess with my friends, and we would have a Prince Charming, and we would get married to the Prince Charming. And I also think it was just being that little girl and watching those romantic movies, and like everyone, like even if there's a conflict, they end up back together and everyone skips off into the sunset.
What was your favorite movies when you were little?
I think I just loved the princess movies.
Really? Like all the Disney princess movies?
Loved the Disney princess movies. I loved The Proposal. I loved your classic rom-coms.
But let's go to the Disney real quick, because I actually want to talk to you about this. If you think about any Disney movie, especially back in the 90s or whatever, it's always the woman's getting rescued or she's asleep and the Prince Charming has to come kiss her. And I'm always thinking, that's like molestation. She's asleep. She didn't say, yes, you can kiss me. Do you get what I'm saying? And Ariel, like she wants to change herself to be human, to be perfect for him. Do you see what I'm saying? Like it's all these weird scenarios, or Sleeping Beauty's asleep too. Like, I don't know. What is your thought on that?
It kind of gives them, I mean, especially The Little Mermaid, changing yourself for someone.
Yes.
That's kind of what I learned is like, I can't change myself for someone. I need to change myself for myself and do what makes me happy.
Yeah, completely. Okay, tell us. So when did it bottom out for you? Because there's always a bottom out, right? There's always a moment you're like, shit, something's wrong here. Something's really wrong with me.
I think I've just always, like, I'm honest about this. I'm a spoiled brat and I'm used to getting what I want. Growing up, I always got what I want. Even if my parents said no, I'd always like manipulate and find a way to get exactly what I want. And I think that started with boys, in every relationship, I always got what I want. Or if someone dumped me, I always would just like find a way to get them to come back and get them to say yes. And I think it got to a point where I was fighting for someone that was literally just giving me crumbs, but I would take it anyway. And I think it realized really abandoning myself and doing things that I wasn't proud of, that I was like, okay, this like can't be. Like, I need to look back. And like, I kind of like realized like I hurt for young Courtney, that she is literally going for the crumbs because I deserve the whole 8-tier cake, not just the little crumbs, you know?
Oh my God, that's just fantasy in itself. You're like, my wedding cake needs to be 8 tiers. That's what I just thought. I want the whole cake. I want it so big, like that it's like $1 million cake. Like that's the fantasy.
Oh
But
my
here's,
gosh.
I do love, because for me, when I bottomed out, I also did things that morally didn't align with my values. And I was like, whoa, if I'm going to this extreme and can't stop, something is really wrong here. Did you go to this like bottom where you were doing these things you would have never thought you would do? Can you give us some of those examples? Because somebody's listening going, that sounds familiar. And then it could be a light bulb moment, like, oh shit, I stalk my ex on Instagram, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it was literally just reaching out to my ex nonstop until like I would annoy the crap out of him.
Okay,
And
give us some examples. What would you say?
I would call him, or I would say, but no, like, one more chance, try this. And I even think like I'm sober. I don't drink alcohol. I got sober in September and then had a quick little relapse. And my sober date's now Valentine's Day, which is just so fitting for me because I think I have so much love to give, but I've been giving that love to everyone else and not myself. And I really think God works in mysterious ways and like allowing these things to work out. But when I was drinking, I would do things to the extreme with exes. I was dating this one guy and I called him a bunch of times until he got blocked. And then I figured out a way to get through to him, like by star 6-7ing him and getting through to him. And I think it's instances like that that really have allowed me to like hit rock bottom.
So take us to your worst relationship, the worst that you abandoned yourself, because that's what you said you did. So take us to the worst.
I think my most recent one, I think I was dating someone who wasn't available emotionally. And I had this fantasy that he was available when he wasn't. And I really think, looking back and reflecting on it, I think we both have stuff that we needed to work on. And I just wanted so badly to be in a relationship with him that I didn't allow us both to heal. And it ended becoming insanely toxic. Where it was just this cycle of, oh, we're going to take time apart. And then like 2 months later, or like 2 weeks later, like we communicated again. And it ended up being a cycle where it was like, we hung out and hooked up, but we never went on a date. And I even took the crumbs when he was like, oh, well, I'm not ready for that. I was like, okay, that's fine. But really it's like, it's not fine. Like I'm ready to be taken on a date and I deserve to be taken on a date. And that's that.
I do think that's relevant, especially with this younger generation. It's almost the hookup generation. I didn't grow up in the hookup generation, but this thing where you hang out with friends and then go to the guy's house or the girl, whoever you're attracted to, and you hook up. And that becomes this pattern where you're not courted anymore. You're not, taking it slow. You automatically go to sexual intimacy when you don't actually know the person. And a lot of times when I work with people, I try to slow that down. Did you jump into that too or not?
Yeah, no, I think we would just hang out at each other's houses and hook up. And I think that is my generation. I'm about to be 25 and it's sad that a lot of relationships just start from like hanging out and hooking up. And then like, it's either they're not ready for a relationship and they like call it quits, which is how it was in my situation, or they start dating, where I think the proper way, or at least how I realized how I want to be treated, is to be taken on dates. And months from now, and months from then you hang out and hook up. But that's when you're dating.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's like you kind of skip that phase.
I know. I'm like, why are so many people swapping spit and stuff? And like, it irritates me on so many levels because listen, I don't mind one night stands. That's your thing. You go and do it. But if you have this where you want to be with somebody and go down because you want to get married, right? And you want to have kids. So you're stopping
that's
that
my
process.
fantasy.
I know that's your fantasy. If you're storybooking it, right, that's your fantasy. So that process stops you from even seeing if you like the person as a friend. You're automatically sleeping with them. So all your emotions and endorphins are already out of whack. because you sexually released and attached yourself to this person that you don't know.
Yeah. So true.
How do you stop? Here's someone's like, well, how do I get better? Like, how do you stop assigning magical qualities of this Prince Charming to people? How do you do that?
I think for me, it really, and we've talked about this, it's really taking a step back and seeing the person for face value, not what you wanted them to be. Especially my most recent relationship, he wasn't able to be my Prince Charming. So I think I was the Prince Charming. Like I would send him gifts. I would give him coffee. I would call him and be like, I'm here for you. And that's like a 90 to 10, relationship's supposed to be 50 to 50. And I was giving 90% and he was giving 10. And I think I was the Prince Charming because I was doing all these things. I was courting him when, if I'm courting him, he should be courting me the same amount.
Exactly. Amen. I'm so glad that you actually just saw you played the Prince Charming role, which is not bad for a woman to do those things for a partner. But if you're the only one doing them and he can't commit, it's like you're shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah.
And you're hobbling around trying to get this person to love you who is never going to love you. And here's what I say. Do you think, because I know you said you kind of pushed him a little bit at the beginning, you were talking, you didn't use that word, but you were saying how, you didn't allow him to heal and you didn't allow yourself to heal before trying again. Is that a fantasy in itself?
Yes and no. I think both of us caused each other pain. We were dating when I was an active addict and, I did some things that were pretty scarring.
Mm-hmm.
As to anyone, I drunkenly tried to kill myself. And that's a lot for someone to realize and take blame for. And I think we immediately jumped back in before either of us were allowed to process and heal from that.
Yeah.
And, when you first get sober, you're not really supposed to date for at least 6 months to a year.
A year.
I was so stubborn that I was like, no, this is what I want. And I'm doing it my way. I'm going to get him back. And I did get him back. And when it came to the time where he wasn't ready for a relationship, it crushed me. And ultimately, I think that's what led me to relapse is I was so anxious that I was finding other ways to cope. And then that led to my relapse. And I think that was ultimately my rock bottom. But then it was constant when I got sober again on Valentine's Day. I think there was more rock bottoms of me reaching out, me making excuses to reach out, trying to get him back. And what I've learned now is that I just need to let go and let God. That's so cliche, but it's so
I
cliche.
Get it. I hate when I say it too, because I'm like, ugh, but it's true. It really is.
And
true.
God has a plan for me, and whether this is my person or not, I gotta do the work on myself and it will work out how it's supposed to.
Oh my God. 2 things I really want to say. You just said, if this is my person, that is
you hate when I say that.
Yes. It's like when people say that to me, all I see are red flag, abort mission, because even that saying is the fantasy of what society puts on a partner. My person, my soulmate, my other half, all that BS bullshit. Even saying it like that, you're putting this pressure on yourself, my person, that I have to work this out because this is my person. Instead of they're just a human. My husband's just a human. And I've told you and I've told other people, if he left me, I'd be okay. I'd be devastated. I'd cry. I'd grieve. I'd go through the process, but he doesn't complete me in any way, shape, or form. What's your thought on that?
I don't know. I think I always, since I was a little girl, had that fantasy of getting married and having kids. And that still is my dream is to get married and have a family. But there's multiple people who that can be with. There's not just one person in this whole universe that's going to be my person.
I know. And I remember saying to you one time, I was like, there's billions and billions of people in this world. Do you think that's the only person you could have a relationship with? And you were like, touche, my friend, touche.
Touche.
Okay. And I also want to say something else. So thank you for sharing about that darkness of the suicide attempt. Can you take us through that a little? What happened that led to that? Because a lot of people don't understand that love addiction is one of the main reasons people lose their recovery and chemical addiction, and suicide and murder. So more people hurt themselves over a breakup and a love addiction than pretty much anything else. So can you take us to that moment?
First, I want to say that I am very open about my suicide attempt because I think not a lot of people are open about it. And, you know, it gave me a second chance to live and realizing how precious life is. And, you know, suicide is scary and you can scare your loved ones. And I mean, we had been broken up and I went to see him to try to win him back.
Get him back.
Just be my typical addict of just, you know, wanting to get it back. And he said no. And I remember going back to my dad's apartment in the city because I hadn't moved to New York City yet. And I just Uber Eats like 10 bottles of wine. And I'm a lightweight, by the way. Like I would have 2 drinks, even though I was an alcoholic, I would have 2 drinks and I'd be drunk. So I had at least 4 bottles of wine.
Wow.
So I was off my rocker, hammered. And I guess all I remember is something clicking in my head, or not clicking in my head, but being like, I just can't do this anymore. And, you know, we broke up the first time because of my drinking, and I would get drunk and I would call him 25 times and be like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Why can't you come over? Why can't you come over? And the next day I would wake up sober and realize what I had done and then been like, I'm so sorry. And he would give me another chance. And then it just kept being the same pattern where he was like, I can't deal with this anymore. And so I remember that slight thought came into my head where it was like, I just can't keep doing this. So I should be dead. And the next thing I remember is taking my whole pill bottle, just swiping all my antidepressants into my hand and taking them. And then waking up the next morning, sober, being like, what did I do? And freaking out because I was like, do I call poison control? Do I go to the hospital? I was like, I'm not going to call my parents right now because they're not with me. I don't want to freak them out. I was like, I'm going to ask my mom to book me a flight home. My parents live in Atlanta, and fly to Atlanta. And then when I get to Atlanta, I'll tell them. And that's what I did. I told them, and my mom, of course, as any mom, was a wreck. You know, she was like, what did I do wrong as a mom that made you want to do this? And I was like, look, Mom, when I drink, I become a different person. It's like when I drink, I become Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And I actually was born on June 22nd, 1998. And 20 years before that, on June 22nd, 1978, my mom lost her brother. He was killed by a drunk driver. And so my mom's maiden name is Courtney. And so I was named Courtney because of him. And so I was kind of like a gift from God, as my mom's side of the family says. You know, it turned a sad day into a happy day. And so my mom was like, I would just be so sad if I lost you from addiction. And you were born when Michael passed away. And that's when it hit me. I was like, my addiction isn't just affecting myself. It's affecting my family, my friends. And I was like, I need to get sober. I need to get sober. And once I got sober, my life did get better, but I'm an addict. So that then turned into shopping. Yeah. Then it turned into boys and wanting that instant gratification. Although my suicide attempt was terrifying, I'm really grateful for that because I don't think that I'd be alive today if I kept doing what I was doing.
Oh, 100%, 100%. And I even had a moment like that where I was like, I just want to ram my car right into this oncoming traffic because I'm in so much pain. So I've had those moments where you're like, I just don't want to go through this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. So I get it. I know. And I'm so glad you got on the other side. And sometimes our darkest moments are the things that get us to the light.
I totally agree.
I just want to touch on 2 other things you were talking about. Well, first of all, I love that you talked about the whack-a-mole, that a love addiction can be, it looks like you're an alcoholic, and that's below an alcoholism is a love addiction or a sex and love addiction, whatever you want to call it. But I love that you talked about that it does whack-a-mole, especially for females. I've seen that it goes to shopping or working out or being obsessed with your body or cosmetic surgery. Like it goes to all those places because we use our outside to get the drug we need, which is attention and validation. So it went to that, you said. So how was that shopping?
Oh, horrible. I lost a lot of trust in my parents. I spent 6 figures on my parents' credit card from shopping, and now that's 6 figures. I'm in debt. And at the time, great. I got new clothes, but that also, I now pay the price where I owe my parents money. I have to earn my parents' trust back. And it's embarrassing.
I hear you. Yeah. And I would go buy something and I would get this rush. And then as soon as I put it on or used it, it would literally go away by the end of the day.
Then you never wear it again.
Yeah. And then you're like looking at it in your closet and you're like, ugh, and you need something else and something else and something else. It's this constant like fill, give me more. Is this greediness, I call it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I know we're almost done, but I have one more question. And this is one that drives me insane. So I want to see if it rings true for you. People love to say they want to be friends with their exes. So if someone breaks up with them, they're like, let's be friends. And they use that as a tool to keep them in your life. Do you think that's part of your addiction?
Yeah, I do. Or at least it was part of it until recently. I realized I can't just be friends with my ex because I will always have feelings for him and I always want to get back together. So, and I said this to him a couple weeks ago. I was like, we can't be friends. Like it's either we're in each other's lives and we're dating or we aren't in each other's lives at all. You can't be friends with your ex. People try to tiptoe around it and say, oh, well, they make excuses like, oh, we decided to be friends. We're going to do this. No. Someone's going to end up developing feelings again, one way or the other. And you can't just be friends with someone. It's not possible.
When you're addicted to that attention and validation, you will even use your friends to get that attention and validation. So why would I do that to 100%.
Myself? Yeah. And I found even for me, even with any guy friends, there's always part of me that thinks, oh, do I have feelings for them?
So if someone's listening right now, because we're about to wrap up, what would be your advice if they were in a toxic relationship or with someone that was giving 10% of their 50%, right? And they're doing all the work. What would be your advice for them to start the process of getting out or healing or letting go, as you said?
Well, that's a tough one.
It's hard. It's hard being addicted to people. It's like walking around outside and there's all these vodka bottles everywhere or lines of Coke, or you're always going to be attracted. But if someone is struggling in a relationship right now and they can't let go of this wishy-washy back and forth, the person acts like they love them and then they disappear or they barely give them any attention, what would you say?
You deserve so much more. And, that's easier said than done, but you deserve someone who's going to be giving you exactly what you give to them. And there's someone out there who is, and if it's not that person, then you need to let them go. Mm-hmm. And, they probably will come back, and it may not be in a healthy way, but they always come back.
Because here's the thing, they want power and control over you as well. If you're unavailable, the person you're with is probably unavailable. And there's this power struggle that they want the attention and validation, just like you do. That's why people keep going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Exactly. But you need to, you gotta let go. Mm-hmm. And I know it's easier said than done, but you're just going to get to a point where it will even become you're giving 98% and they're giving 2%. The more you go deeper and deeper into it, because they'll think that you'll still stay around and they don't need to change. You're still doing everything. They don't need to change. But when you let go and you stand your ground and voice that this is not how you deserve to be treated, it will shock them because they think that you always are going to give them 90 or 98%. But, when you walk away and you throw in your hand and you're like, I'm done, I'm not going back to this until I get 98% from you. That's kind of my best advice is you have to walk away if you want them to walk back into your life. But you also have to walk away for yourself. You deserve so much more and you should be giving yourself 98%. instead of giving it to someone else, like treat your day or treat yourself to a spa day, or like go for a walk on the beach, or if you're not by a beach, like just go for a walk and listen to music. Or this is my favorite, is having a dance party in my room by myself and blasting like my favorite music. Do things that make you yourself happy.
I love that. That's awesome advice. And I get joy back in your life is how I see it, because you're taking out something. So we take away the person we're addicted to, right? And that love high and that rush and that attention and validation. And I say you have to replace it with something, or you're going to be in a state of depletion. So I agree, bring some joy in your life. And for me, anything that you found fun as a child, going back to like that inner child Courtney, probably dancing around in her room when she was young, she loved that. So I'm so grateful you came on. Thank you for sharing your story and your truth. And
I'm so grateful for you, Brie. You really have changed my life. So
oh, well, I love you and you're doing great. And it's one step at a time, and it's letting go and letting God, as you said, and just surrendering.
Yeah.
If you want to be on the show, please email me at secretlifepodcast@icloud.com. Until next time. Thanks again for listening to the show. Please subscribe, rate, share, or send me a note at secretlifepodcast.com. And if you'd like to check out my book, head over to secretlifenovel.com or Amazon to pick up a copy for yourself or someone you love. Thanks again. See you soon.